Hey, good evening, everybody. We got so much to talk about this week. So much happened. This is the GUBUM webinar, and we are talking about everything AI. Everything in our lives is AI now. We've got so many things happening in the news and in our lives, and it's moving really fast. So this week, we're going to talk about some of the current events, and the things that are on people's mind are some of the shootings that occurred. Last week, we talked about whether ChatGPT can cause kids to commit suicide. This week, we're going to talk about shootings and violence and crimes and whether they can be prevented and should they be. So, at top of mind is of course, the Charlie Kirk shooting. Could AI technology have prevented it? Because anytime there's a shooting like that, we have some trail. We find out afterwards they put a manifesto up, they had some posted things on social media and things like that. AI is capable of scouring the internet and finding these things. And if we did it beforehand, could that have been prevented? And then we also have just today they reported that they caught a man in Texas for making threats about New York mayoral candidate Zoran Mandani, and they caught him before he did anything. He was making threats, and he was making physical threats. I don't know if AI technology was used to capture the guy, but AI is something that can absolutely be used to possibly deter crime. And then on top of that, this week we also had the firing of comedian Jimmy Kimmel for remarks that he made. And of course, he made his remarks in public, but AI can potentially listen in on our conversations and even in our private conversation, because your phone's listening to you all the time. In the past, I used to say, I don't care if they're listening to me. I'm not interesting enough for them to really care. And they're going to assign somebody to listen to everything I say. But now with AI, they can do that. AI is constantly listening to you. And then if you say something that you shouldn't say, AI can report you. You don't need people to do it. So, in the heels of all that, I thought it was very timely. And I asked my friend Kevin Darougar, who was a former counterterrorism sergeant for New York City. Now he's currently working for security for UBS, and he's actually working an event right now. So I thank you so much for joining us in your busy schedule here.
Of course.
And then I have our panelists, Eric and Matthew, and then we have our audience. And anybody in the audience has any questions or want to make a remark, you can raise your hand and I can promote you up to panelist so you can talk. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Kevin Daruger, who is going to talk to us about cybersecurity and what's happening. And of course, you're not working for the city anymore, but you've seen some crazy stuff in your days at the NYPD. And
Yeah, sure.
so tell us how much surveillance actually goes on before AI? Like what did they do? Like what kind of things were they keeping tabs on?
Well, on our level, right, we used CCTV, we used access control systems throughout the city to track. Specifically, also, I guess it's not now, I guess it's pretty much common knowledge. We would track individuals with their MTA cards. You know, when you swipe them, when you come and go, it actually stamps it with the time. There's actually a camera. If you look carefully above each one of the areas where you swipe, it takes a picture of you. So as of when I left 2024, those were still active. And facial recognition is a real thing, but the photos get purged if not red flagged. So that was at the time, that was the system that we had. Um, Currently now, or like you had mentioned, I do the UBS arena using those 25 years with Intel and counterterrorism. I use the systems, the Genetech systems, the access control systems, the risk assessments that we have. And what you touched on with the AI, we've picked up and working with an AI company now, which basically we had spoken about earlier, crowd control, crowd surges, but that can easily be phased into facial recognition, right? And I think we are doing a really good job. Just a quick give an overview as far as society. I think it could definitely be used to, I'd say right now where it's better used now as far as the detecting, right, as it's happening, or AI solving mass shootings right now. I think what's coming is kind of like what you were alluding to, for sure is coming, is the prevention, right? The prevention aspect of a mass shooting. So when it comes to AI, obviously we all know, Matt, Eric, you guys work a lot with it. It's a powerful tool, right? It could help us prevent, detect, solve incidents like mass shootings. I think predictive analytics is coming. I think smarter surveillance is already here, if not coming even higher level with AI. And I think it's going to give us faster response as far as an emergency response where minutes, seconds could make the difference. And I think kind of what you alluded to also, Dr. Song, is the fact that I think in the years that I was there, I think citizen privacy is going to have to remain somewhere around the core value. So that's the thing I think is going to be a discussion point for
So
later
I
on. And
Yeah, so I think before 9/11, privacy was, very important in America. But then after 9/11, we kind of decided that we were willing to give up some privacy for safety. So, Eric, you were just in Seoul, Korea. You did a semester there, and one thing you said to me was that um, people don't really commit crimes because there's cameras everywhere and they're watching everything. And this is South Korea, not North Korea. And so the surveillance does seem to deter crime, but did you feel like people weren't happy about it or they just accepted it? What did you think, Eric?
I think people just accepted it. I think it's part of the culture to not commit crimes or anything, but I think crime really went down once all the surveillance cameras were implemented. So I think, I mean, I never heard anyone say anything bad about it. No one ever complained, but I think the benefits very much outweigh the privacy risk because you can just walk anywhere and feel safe. And I think that's a big plus that most places in the world don't have.
So, so there was a movie, it's kind of an older movie called The Minority Report with Tom Cruise. And basically, they had these oracles that were able to predict the future, and they were very accurate. So they were using these oracles to prevent crimes from happening, or they would find people that the oracles predicted were going to commit crimes, and they would arrest them before they actually committed the crime. So that was obviously a science fiction movie, but now AI actually has the capability of predicting crimes before they happen. And even before AI with Google, they can actually predict where the new next flu epidemic was going to occur because they would monitor people searching symptoms. Like if people were searching for, cures for their sniffling nose and that kind of stuff, they can actually predict the next flu outbreak by the number of people searching for this. So AI is taking that to a whole new level. So now AI can find people, find things in seconds. So Kevin, what do you see in the industry that's happening now in both private and government industries? Are people investing in AI technology for surveillance of this type? What do you think?
I think for sure we're getting more sweeping scouring of social media. The police department had actually detectives going over social media, right? Like at the time was Twitter, Instagram for the photos, Facebook. I think that is really moving into the AI world right now, for sure. And I think it's going keyword search. I think it's flagging. I know it's flagging. It's hitting some, and rightfully so, hitting some resistance. But right now, it's not very hard to get that, but you do still have to get some sort of search warrant, let's just say in a weird way, to have that be done. The Patriot Act made that, which we were alluding to, made that a lot easier to get after it was passed.
Do you feel like the Patriot Act made it easier, but now it seems like none of that even matters? The surveillance that's capable with AI, it's really getting ahead of us so fast that we don't really even have a chance to react to it. And Eric, you mentioned that in South Korea, all the surveillance was kind of accepted. But is that something that people in America are willing to accept, like AI surveilling us all the time? What do you think, Matthew?
I think that a huge part of surveillance or not committing crimes is definitely a part of the culture because South Korea has a very rigid culture that's very much influenced by rules and customs and those kind of things. So that's why I think those people are more accepting of that type of security. It's also similar in places such as Dubai and the UAE. They have a very low crime rate, but that's also because of severe punishments for committing crimes, even little ones such as petty theft. So I think culture plays a huge shift in it. And in places like Seoul or Dubai, it's very different from America, which is a lot more focused on freedom. And we don't have such a rigid or rule following culture. So I feel like there would be a much greater backlash to implementing those types of things versus in other countries, just because also based on those kinds of government overreach before, because you can see that in America, for example, during COVID, the government imposed things such as quarantine and social distancing, and due to our cultural values in America, people were much more against those type of mandates or vaccine mandates versus in other countries such as China, where they have a much stricter culture and they impose much stricter rules, which people were generally more willing to follow versus here. So I think despite the benefits, it would definitely face much more backlash if we tried to do that in America.
I think if it really depends on which side, right? I think Americans as general, we value freedom, and as long as it's our own freedom. But what I'm seeing is that with the difference in political ideology, people are willing to give up freedom of other people as long as it doesn't impinge on their own freedom. So, for example, if you have people criticizing the government, the current administration could go after people criticizing them. But then when the administration changes, whatever precedents they set now, it could, absolutely reverse. I mean, I could see, for example, Zoran Mandani is very popular in New York City, and he could potentially be the next mayor. And I think part of that is a backlash against the current administration. So, what if someone like him, who's on the extreme side on the left, becomes president? I mean, is he going to go after people on the right? And it's just going to go back and forth. And I think that's ultimately not going to be a good thing for our country to have all these people using AI and the technology to fight each other.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the crime prevention part is good because it can prevent some crimes. But the question is, where do we draw the line? Because we have the ability now with AI, but where do we draw the line? What do we allow governments and private industry to do in the name of safety?
Yeah,
So,
I think
that's
difficult.
the no. So go ahead, sure, go ahead.
Oh, I think the difficult issue is once we give over those type of freedoms and allow those type of things to happen, it's extremely difficult to sort of roll those back. So if we decide that yes, we can allow the government to track all of these things and use AI to um, analyze it and predict these threats, then once that's in, maybe people will decide, oh, we don't like this. But once it's implemented, it's very hard to get rid of. So if people were very opposed to this, it would be much more likely that they would be able to prevent it from happening in the first place versus trying to get rid of it when it's already been there. Because at that point, the cat's pretty much out of the bag and you can't put it back. But that's also kind of how it's going with the rest of the AI generation in general, because there are very many people against it for reasons just like that they don't support AI because it takes away from jobs. But at this point, there's no pushing it back since people are already using it so heavily.
Yeah, and that was the whole point of starting this webinar series because AI is incorporated into everything. And I don't know if you guys finding this, anytime you have a conversation with people or you're in any group, AI always comes up because it's such a big shift in our society right now. And this is just part of it, but it incorporates everything. And I'm using it in my job every day. There's so many cool things, and we're going to be talking about so many different things. We'll never run out of topics because there's something new with AI every day. But what I wanted to do now was just talk about some tools that we can incorporate in our lives since we're talking about security. And in preparation for this webinar, I just talked to ChatGPT and it helped me come up with some questions and stuff. And then I also asked it to look for some AI tools that we can use for safety. And one of the ones that I'm going to start using right away is this thing called Norton Genie, Norton Security. I didn't know they had this because I was like, someone should make an app or something that can detect scams. And apparently Norton already did. They have a scam detector and it comes with all the different levels of their product and you can just send it your emails or links or anything that you think might be fraudulent because those phishing scams are very sophisticated now. It looks like it's coming from your bank and I don't know how many times I almost clicked on it and then I checked the email address and it looked fishy, but you can send it to Norton and they'll tell you instantly whether it's a fake. So I'm going to start using that right away. And then they have deep fake detectors on to check websites. Deep fakes are a big problem now because you can make videos of people um, apparently saying or doing things, and it works both ways. You can accuse somebody of doing something with a deep fake video, or you can be filmed doing something bad, and then you can just claim it's a deep fake. So it's nice to have some tools that can help detect that, but I'm sure that AI can figure out how to circumvent it. So, any thoughts from some people in the audience? If you want to chime in, you can just raise your hand and I can promote you up to a panelist so you can talk. But in the meantime, what are your thoughts?
I have something I want to say with Matthew. I actually wrote it down. What a great point he said. Once they implement something, right? And it's kind of tailing off of what you said, Dr. Song. Then when they implement it, it's kind of too late, right? And then whoever's in control, are they the ones that kind of determine what is extremist conversation? What kind of content is going to be flagged, right? That's a really good point that he brought up because once it's implemented, that's it, it's done. So I think we have to find that fine line or that balance or some way to check, I guess, kind of counterbalance that other side of using AI in that perspective. Because then it becomes a weapon, right? A political weapon.
Yeah. And there's no good answer. John, you have your hand up. I already have you up here, so you can talk.
Okay, sure. I
Hey,
agree
John.
with everything. I can imagine how lovely it must be to walk in a street of a city and feel safe. And honestly, like you said when you first started speaking, Bill, like, go ahead and listen to me. I'm not that interesting. I'm not committing any crimes. So if you're being surveilled and you're committing a crime, that's your problem. You're committing a crime. Hey, I don't care if it's a financial crime or a physical crime. You're being surveilled. You committed a crime. You're guilty. So we thank God we caught you. There's nothing wrong with that. The line is free speech. As long as we have free speech, we're okay. And I've been thinking about it the past few days. It's like, we never want to limit free speech. And ironically, in my mind, you can't yell fire in a theater, right? That's the only thing the Supreme Court said. Well, guess what? If you yell fire in a theater, people, run out, someone gets trampled, and they get a black and blue knee. No one dies. But what seems to have been accepted is that over the past few years, calling someone a tyrant, a Nazi, an existential threat to democracy, that's a call to violence. And I mean, we have proof of that. I mean, isn't it your duty if you literally knew that this person was no different than Hitler and is going to kill 6 million people, or this person is the end, the existential threat to democracy? He's the end of our republic. Any patriotic American should eliminate that person. And a crazy person, of course, will take up arms and do it. So I think, again, free speech, say whatever you want. Let the private market take care of that. If they want to continue, keeping that person, who want to continue buying their goods, free speech, free speech, free speech. But calls to violence or inciting violence, that should be worse than yelling fire in a theater.
Yeah, I mean, like we said before, it's going to work both ways. So, some people might feel like, okay, it's okay to arrest these people, but then it could easily come back to you. And the thing with AI is that the predictability of AI is uncanny. I mean, the way that AI works is they just dumped like all the information that's on the internet, right? So that the AI basically predicts the next word that's going to be said, and that's how it can come up with these. I mean, seems like you're talking to a very intelligent human, but all it's doing is taking everything that's out there and then predicting the next word or series of words and coming up with sentences and even a conversation that sounds very real and intelligent. So it's very accurate, not imperfect, but it's very accurate. So if we can use AI to very accurately predict that somebody's going to commit a crime and they haven't done anything and maybe not even said anything, but AI can look at their behavior on the internet or their tone of speech and things and say, hey, this guy's going to shoot up a school. Do we have the right to go and take away his guns based on what AI did? Do we have a right to arrest him? So we don't have the answer, but I think those are things that we have to kind of keep in mind as we navigate this whole new territory. I'm really thrilled with AI, and like you guys were saying, Matthew, you said it's out there. We can't stop it if we wanted to. This powerful force that's moving through. All we can do is be ahead of it and use it for good. And in the meantime, there's some really great tools that can put us ahead of everyone else, because I've only been embracing AI just since the beginning of the summer, and I feel like I know so much more than most people just because I'm a few months ahead. So the sooner you get on board of learning about AI and about everything you can, I think it's gonna just put you light years ahead of the people who are falling behind and not doing anything. Um, so what do you guys think?
I have one quick thing. I just want to step back. I even took another note, chomping at the bit with John's comment. I think that's absolutely true. And I think AI can and should be used in that perspective. But then going forward, I think it should be a piece, right? Maybe a couple pieces of the puzzle. AI uses to monitor that, but then perhaps AI uses so AI uses a portion of that to say, hey, there's anomalous purchases from this individual, let's just say firearms or ammunition. And then maybe another component would be their movements or you know what I mean? And at that point, they become red flagged. I think it's important to realize that YouTube, TikTok, they augment, amplify a certain segment, right? You get what you watch. That keeps you watching. So it kind of keeps you moving into that perspective. So like what John said, somebody kind of says something radical and they start attracting that into their feed, perhaps they will do that. So I think that needs to be looked at carefully. I think we need to move into that. And Dr. Song, I can't say too much about it, but this weekend I sat with a company that's doing this thing called I can say that it's good. They're looking to build what they call smart cities, and I think AI for sure is going to be used in the new cities built. Um, I think they're looking at overlays right now. I think we're going to be going to Raleigh and I think, but let's just use LA for example. Part of LA is burnt down. They're going to start building from that infrastructure up. I think you're going to start seeing these new smart cities come out. CCTV connected to perhaps AI systems that can do facial recognition. And then it would be part of what John was kind of talking about, where, or what actually what Matthew was talking about also, every part of your life is going to be on camera. It is already, but it's segmented, right? JP Morgan across the street has a camera. There's a restaurant on the other side. So someone has to actually put those pieces together. This will be one streamlined level. So I just wanted to step back on that and say I do agree with a lot what John said, because you can scream fire, and that probably came, John, probably from somewhere where someone actually really did die or get hurt, and they decided to pass laws on that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving into a new area that needs to be carefully examined. And I think you really need to be careful, and I think we are. We have to have some sort of threat management in that sense. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Matthew, you had something to say here?
Oh, yeah. So I definitely agree with Kevin on the point that using AI to detect people's speech should just be a part of the puzzle because, I mean, personally, I've heard many people say things about wanting to harm upper level members of the government. People say those kind of things all the time. That doesn't mean that every single one of those people means it. So I think it's really important that we also evaluate things like you said with the firearms and other parts of their life, not just what they're saying. And if we're going to use this really seriously in terms of actual legal practice, then we need really accurate models for this. Because if we have a somewhat inaccurate model that's going to flag every time someone criticizes a member of the government and suggests violence, then um, that can get really dangerous, and we'll be getting all kinds of people in trouble just for using their right to free speech. And one more thing, just to elaborate on what you were saying about smart cities, I think it could be great, but there also is the potential for incredible overreach and breaches of privacy. Because one example is Singapore. They laud themselves as being a smart city, but they also have policies such as, well, most of their apartments are public housing, so owned by the government, but they have cameras in these people's homes and they use them for purposes such as um, detecting if elderly people have fallen and are in need of assistance, which can be a good thing because no one else might be around and you can get these people the care they need. But at the same time, that's the government putting cameras in people's homes, which could end up being a massive breach of privacy.
There's already cameras in your homes.
But cameras that are actually owned by the government and specifically watching you all the time.
They have access to it. Eric, you had something to say.
Yeah, so with the crime tracker thing across, let's say, technology and social media, I feel like that can show a lot of false positives about crime, and it will make, because like Matthew was saying, like everyone will say something like a lot of times out loud, or they'll text it to their friends about, yeah, something that sounds terroristic. And if they take the time away from law enforcement to go ahead at these people, I feel like that could be more of a waste of time and money. I think it's a great idea, but there's not as much basis on it, and it could be a waste of time and money. And also, like, back to what we were saying about like the crimeless cities, I think I agree with what Matthew said. It's not all about the surveillance. It's more about how people identify themselves. And I think in America, people have the identity that they're free and they can do whatever, like they have the freedom to express themselves. And being watched all the time and having a lot of regulations would really be a downside and could cause outrage. But in other cultures, people identify themselves as law abiding because that's the norm. So I think there's a fine line that we need to figure out with AI crime tracking. Like, is this worth the time and the money? And like which sector should actually be focused on?
Yeah. So, to your point, though, AI can eliminate the cost and manpower or greatly lower it because now you don't have to have somebody, a person actually doing the surveillance AI. And then if you say one thing, it may not flag it, but AI can take what you said today and then pair it with everything you've said and done, where you go and things like that. And then with that, they can predict. And it's going to be very accurate, the ability of AI to predict these things. So I don't think we have an answer, but I think it's something that we should really be aware of because it's going to affect what kind of laws we make, what kind of cities we build, what kind of appliances we use. So it's going to affect everything. And that is why we decided to do this series. We're going to be talking about how AI is in every part of our lives. And in future webinars, we're going to bring on different people. And I see Signy's on there. We had her on last week. She's an actor. She was on the X-Files, and her industry is really worried about their job because AI is going to take over a lot of acting jobs. So that's something that maybe we can talk about for the next webinar about the jobs that people can lose, and then also the jobs that people will have. I think if we looked at the positive side, AI is going to create a lot of jobs too. It's going to take a lot of jobs, so you have to be on the right side of AI, otherwise you're going to be left behind. So
It's like anything else in life. I feel like, and I said this last week, the more you know, the more you know. And knowledge is power. And the more capable you are of approaching something and being able to, for lack of a better description, control it, maneuver it, work with it, the better off you're going to be. Does it feel a bit like Big Brother's watching? We had interviewed a woman by the name of Dr. Ann Burgess, who was implemental. She helped implement with the FBI, developing a way to profile serial killers, to catch serial killers, basically help build a department. And she heads up the nursing department at Boston University. She's written a number of books. She has spoken with a number of very infamous serial killers. She's just this incredible, I think she's 88 now, dynamo that just does not stop. And she said, because of the level of cameras and security that we have now, and especially AI is going to even expand that to a greater degree, people are a little bit more hesitant about doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing, especially when it pertains to murder.
yeah.
So I know there's a way around everything, but they found that the percentages of atrocities that were occurring were much less when people started putting in, ring cameras, and people have, you have your phone and you can video anything on your phone, or whatever you want to call it, tape it, video. You can capture it. So I'm all for becoming aware of what I can do to educate myself about AI, because I do think it has many positives, but like anything new, there's positives and negatives. So
Yeah.
So, real quick, so on the forensic background going with what Eric said and what Signy's saying, we used to do behavioral risk modeling, right? And I think it was based on, I think like older models, let's say psychological models on the forensic end. And kind of what Eric was saying about false positives, I think now with AI, people tend, you have these keyboard warriors that'll say crazy things, right? And that puts you now onto that spectrum where, and in my time where we were like kind of doing a personality analysis and then we come out with a behavioral risk model and say, hey, this person indicates X, perhaps. I think, because people can say some insane things, it actually pushed it off the spectrum. And to Eric's point, which was great, with AI surveilling you for sure. I mean, I'm getting it now. We get it now, right? False positives. So it's something really that, again, we go on to threat management, right? And assessment of it. It's a new era. And kind of like what Dr. Song is saying, we're in a new era and we really need to figure out the Overton window is kind of moving, right? So now we got to figure out where our focus is going to have to be, where bring us back to some sort of normalcy, right? Because you're saying AI is great. I agree, but I'm also on the board with John saying we really need to be careful also, right? Because we can't, yeah. So it's such an amazing tool, and I use it every day. Dr. Song uses it every day. I use it here at the arena for sure. All the cameras, all the surveillance. I mean, we 2,000 cameras, right? So and plus. And AI has been an extremely amazing tool as far as lessening the time. And I think, on that perspective, lessening time also on the behavioral risk modeling also can condense that to a point. But then to Eric's point, the false positives also become higher. So,
Kevin, you've seen some threats and stuff like really up close. Do you think that in 10 years from now, will AI have saved more lives, or could it possibly have like cost? Would we in 10 years say that AI did more good or more harm to our population?
I would first, I mean, I'm a half glass full. So I would say for sure it's going to save lives. I think for sure it's going to be better for humanity. But again, that double-edged sword, right? You need to make sure that we take advantage of AI, but also on its, once we start to right now we're really good with the what I call the detection ongoing of detection, right? The predictive part is the part I think we need to be careful for, because that goes to your world that you're talking about, member minority report, where and it proved to be wrong, right? It proved the three oracles proved to be wrong on something that they had because they got a snippet of it. And I think that's such a great point that you brought up, Dr. Song, because it is the AI will give you this thing and say, hey, you know, Kevin's a threat, and here are the reasons why, and it may not be the full picture.
Yeah. Right now, that's absolutely something we have to be really careful about, because when we ask ChatGPT, the answers it gives it's very confident, and
Yeah.
it sounds like that's, absolutely right, but AI makes mistakes and it hallucinates,
Yes.
so you got to check its work. Eric, you had something to say.
Many times.
Yeah. So to answer your question about if people would say, is AI beneficial or negative, I'd say it would be the exact same thing that people say about the internet. Like, because the upsides, you can just do everything online so much more quickly. Everything's much more efficient. And same with AI, like with the security part, many crimes and risks can be prevented. But I feel like the same criticisms would be said about the internet, like shortening people's attention spans and not critically thinking. And I feel like people aren't really, they know they should, but they aren't really fact checking Chat GPT. I feel like a lot of people don't like they don't have the energy for that, and they trust it very easily. So I think it's the critical thinking skills that for people that will be criticized, but again, the benefits are making things so much more efficient and safer and better risk management.
You're absolutely right. When the internet first started, there was a lot of speculation about how harmful it's going to be, but overall, I think it's much more useful, and there's certainly downsides of what the internet brought us, and there's people can certainly argue for the harm that's caused by all the screen time and everything. But I mean, I personally like having the internet, and I like AI too.
That's that information wrong. That just happened to us recently. We were doing the podcast on Tuesday, interviewing this Chrissy Fox, who's an actor, director, producer in the horror genre. And one of the questions that had been researched by my associate was asked, you started your first horror film at age 12 and finished it. She goes, no, actually, I was 20 and it had misinformation. So I'm just saying that's one tiny little thing, but I've caught a number of glitches in it when I'm researching something as well. So, but once again, know your tool.
Yeah, yeah. People are very sloppy with AI and ChatGPT. You just have to like learn the nuances of how to use it, and it's such a powerful tool. And I think if you're new to AI, you could just start with learning how to use ChatGPT the right way. And the neat thing is you can actually ask ChatGPT to help you. You can go on there, and if you don't know what to ask, you don't know how to write a prompt, ask it, how should I write the prompt if I want to do this? And it'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually learn from it. So um, I just want to open up also to anybody in the audience. Hi, Marta.
Hi. What an interesting conversation. You brought up some topics that I didn't even think about. And now that I've thought about it, especially how AI could go through Facebook and Instagram and kind of give a heads up to potential, terrorists or people that would go up and shoot up in a school or a concert, and how that weighs against, maybe catching people that, wouldn't have done it. It's like, where's your freedom in all that? And, these are really deep questions.
And we don't have the answer right now, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, let's wait and see what happens. But it's a real fascinating time that we live in because we're watching all this happen in real time, and it's changing so fast. They say the capability of AI doubles every 3 months.
It's getting so far ahead of us.
It absolutely is. So
Made horror films about just that.
They sure did.
Yeah.
are
This
you
was a very interesting conversation to listen to. So thank you.
Thank you. So anything like really cool that anybody's doing with AI that you want to share?
Well, you can pretty much ask AI anything. I got my list from Exact Data and it gave it to me in Excel form. So I had the names, address, phone numbers, emails in a row. And I'm like, oh shit, how am I going to make it into labels? So I asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT said, oh, you got to put different headings on the columns. Then you go here, then you go to Microsoft Word, and then you have to put the columns in the right place, this, that, and other. I was like, can you do it for me? And 2 seconds later, I had it all put in label form.
Wow.
But, I agree absolutely 100% with everything everybody said. And a funny thing happened just an hour ago. I was at the supermarket and I'm checking out, and you talk about how tools can be good or bad and make people not think. And I gave the kid $100 bill and he's sitting there fumbling around, and then he gets out his phone, he gets out his calculator, and 5 minutes later, he said, I'm sorry. He goes, I thought you gave me a 50 and that's what I put on the cash register. So the change was wrong. So I had to put in 100 on my calculator to figure out that I owed you like, $63 change. And I'm like, he can't even subtract a
Right.
100 from $63 because he's been using, calculator or computer his whole life. And he doesn't even have the ability in his brain to do simple math.
John, you bring up a very important point because
Yeah.
one huge thing that AI is going to do is going to change the way that we think.
Yep.
Okay. And
Or
you guys,
nothing.
Eric and Matthew, you're probably like the last generation that's actually going to think with your brain because the kids that are growing up now, like right now, they're worried about kids cheating with AI, but pretty soon AI is just going to be part of how we do everything. And just like, you guys don't know like clockwise, counterclockwise, because you don't get a dial of a clock. The new generation, they're just going to be thinking very differently. The AI is going to be part of their brain, and they're just going to be so used to thinking with AI that they're not going to be able to think for themselves. So, in some ways, they're going to be much smarter than us because they're going to be using this technology. But when it comes to like real life basic stuff, they're going to not have the skills that we have. So
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, another very important point, which both Eric and Kevin said about the same thing. I mean, I remember being in college and, protesting against the Vietnam War, and we all said stupid things. But as Kevin pointed out, we can all say something stupid like, oh my God, I'd love to kill that guy. You could say that, but then as Kevin pointed out, that's where AI will come in and say, oh, well, he didn't, he went to the gun store or he only said it once. So it's nothing. So AI will actually help get rid of the false positives. So I think it's all going to work out beautifully. I really do. It's just like everything else. Like, I don't know if Eric or Matthew said it, when the computer first came out, when the internet first came out, everyone feared it and then, it eventually finds its place.
All right, great point, John. The only thing is for there,
So I
right?
agree with everything you all said.
My
It was
concern with that
excellent.
also, just to jump on that as well. Yeah, so he brought up a great point, and I think when we were talking with this weekend when I was with the Smart Cities people, we're trying to get this together. The privacy, citizen privacy was one of the big points I brought up. And there is this one company that, well, several involved that are conglomerating to create this smart city, is the filtration, right? The citizen will be filtered out of the government. It'll be kind of, think of it as like a blockchain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So just the data will be transferred to the government entity and not the person's identity. I think that's important. And I think in this case, if we were to do, this person said this person said that, it'll, if they do it enough, it'll red flag them, but not all the components are coming together. So maybe it'll filter it up in that same instance. Well, it'll say, hey, just for data purposes, Queens, specifically Jackson Heights, let's say there's been 33 threats. You know what I mean? So we don't know who they are, but we do see a spike of it at that point. So I think citizen privacy is important, and that would control those false positives in that sense.
We just have to hope that they abide by these rules that
Yes,
they've been.
I know, that's the thing, right? Absolutely. That's always the thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so now we're coming up on the hour, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Signy, who has actually inspired me to do these web cast because she has her podcast that she's doing. It's called The Significance, and I was actually a guest on it. And she's got some really, really interesting people on her show. So it's called The Significance. So she's on all different platforms, and I'm gonna, keep asking you for help in getting this going.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I think we're going to have some really interesting conversations, and I don't think we're going to run out of material because I
Mm-mm.
already have so many things that we can talk about. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And if you're watching this on YouTube or another recording, you can go to GUBUM, GUBUM, GUBUM.com. That stands for Global Unleashing of Brilliant and Unlimited Minds. Because we want to do this and keep having the conversation, because I think it's very important for us to be aware of what's happening and be ahead of AI, because we're concerned about AI taking over. But the only power that's going to be stronger, more powerful than the AI, is humanity itself. At this point, we're all trying to figure out AI. And I don't care who you are, nobody's an expert at it because it's got a life of its own. We all know pieces of it. And if we collectively share what we learn and teach each other stuff as we go as a community, I think we're going to be able to stay ahead of AI and use it for our benefit. And that's the goal of doing this, so that we can keep having the discussion and keep learning from each other.
Strength in numbers.
Yep. So again, thank you, everybody. It was so great to have such an interesting panel of people, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right on the hour. We're going to try to keep to that.
Be safe.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right.